Welcome to another episode of Touring the AFC South. I am your host, Mike Patton. And on this episode, we're going to be talking about a few things that came out of the NFL meetings, some signings, and a recent retirement of someone who played in the AFC South. We're going to go through all that and more on this episode of Touring the AFC South that you can actually follow Touring the AFC South on the Mike Pat Network on YouTube, where you can click the bell and subscribe to the channel where you don't miss any of the shows when they come on. You can also subscribe on audio wise as well. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, you name it, we are there. Go ahead, subscribe there so you can take me with you in your car or wherever you may be going as well. Like I mentioned in this episode, NFL meetings were this week, and a few things came out of these NFL meetings. The first thing we're going to talk about is NFL global expansion. Now, of course, you've seen the games that have been in different countries all across the world. They got Brazil now, Spain, they got Germany, you got all these different places. Well, there's a new name to add to those countries. That is Italy. Now, I will say right now it's not necessarily set that there's going to be a game in Italy. Just there isn't. But there has been like a marketing expansion there in Italy, and the two teams that are, basically I have their marketing stuff there, or going to have it there, will be the Cleveland Browns and the New Orleans Saints. Now, I know us here, in the stateside, when it comes to the Cleveland Browns and the New Orleans Saints, there's probably a lot more people in those states that cheer for those teams than outside of those states and better yet, the country. And I understand that. But, and when you go overseas, hey, people can get attached to certain teams. There's fans for the Titans overseas. There's groups for them. There's groups for the Jaguars. There's groups for, there's groups for everybody somewhere overseas, whether you want to believe that or not. And with this going on, now you're kind of creating, I guess, a little bit more of a buzz for the Browns and the Saints. And maybe they'll have some fans that pop up in Italy. We'll see. But, one connection over there is former New York Giants offensive lineman Justin Pugh. If you aren't aware, he is the commissioner over there of the Italian Football League. He's trying to kind of get it revived, get it revved up. And he's also an investor in it. So there's the NFL connection there. Former New York Giants offensive lineman Justin Pugh. And, maybe, with the NFL kind of marketing a little bit more, maybe, just maybe, this will help his league in terms of growing. They've been there for 48 years. I'm pretty sure nobody knew they had been there for 48 years. But they have been there for 48 years, and I know he is trying to, resurge that league, trying to get more interest in the NFL over there in Italy. It'll be just interesting to watch. I know. Remember when the Euro League games over there, or the games NFL Europe. I'm sorry, let me get it correct. NFL Europe games, and when those used to happen, and the interest in just watching players getting allocated from different teams over there and playing, I wonder if that'll ever get to that level again to do those type of things. But there are leagues overseas of people that do play football just like they play here, and not football in terms of soccer over there too. So just interesting to check that out, that the league definitely is doing, trying to continue to expand globally. Of course, they got a game in Australia this year with the 49ers and the Rams to start the season, which that's insane, playing that far away. But, it's just the NFL continuing to try to become a global game, like basketball is. They're trying to become a global game. Now, we're going to get back to more stuff that happened at the NFL meetings. Now, of course, this next thing that happened, it was voted on at the NFL meetings, but kind of already been kind of talked about and whatever. It just had to be voted on at the NFL meetings. That's a new home for the Jacksonville Jaguars in 2027. Now, in 2027, I'll just let's break it down. Let's bring it on back. The Jacksonville Jaguars are their stadium is kind of in the middle of being remodeled. They're kind of remodeling it while they're playing in it, which is kind of an insane prospect to kind of think of. But of course, it's basically they're redoing the stadium around the field and everything. It's going to be called the Stadium of the Future once it's done, and a lot of different upgrades and things like that. The owners of the Jaguars are trying to do to make that stadium and just the area around the stadium even more appealing, and maybe appealing for a Super Bowl there. But yeah, definitely they're doing that. Scheduled to be done 2028. Now in 2025, they played there, yeah, things like that. But in 2026, they're doing some work there, and it's going to have a reduced capacity in Jacksonville. So it's not going to be as big of a crowd there to cheer on the Jacksonville Jaguars for Jaguars fans. But fast forward to 2027, they're going to have to do some major work at that stadium, and that requires the Jacksonville Jaguars to not be in the stadium. And with that being said, they had to find a place to play. And what they decided on and what the NFL owners agreed to is them playing at, let me get the name of the stadium correct, y'all, Camping World Stadium in Orlando for the 2027 season. Now, if you aren't aware, that's about a 2-hour drive from Jacksonville. And in regards to Camping World Stadium, they actually are getting a renovation as well that should be done in 2026. That actually is going to make their stadium have about 65,000 seats, along with a few other upgrades to kind of bring it into this decade as well. So that'll be something interesting to watch, just what the upgrades are. That stadium, about 65,000. That's a pretty good number of seats for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, I know this wasn't the only option when it came to the Jacksonville Jaguars and where they will play in the 2027 season. One of the other options was Ben Hill Griffin Stadium on the campus of the University of Florida Gators. That was one option. The other option that was mentioned was Daytona International Speedway. Now, with both of these places, they're both closer. Now, with Daytona being an hour and 24 minutes away and Gainesville being an hour and 16 minutes away. However, if you look at Gainesville, it's 88,548 seats. You look at Daytona, it's over 100,000 people. I just don't see that getting the NFL feel. So I think that's why those were kind of canceled out, along with maybe potential parking issues when it comes to Daytona and Gainesville. You're bringing all that stuff on a college campus. So those things right there could be reasons why they did not get picked, despite those stadiums being closer and those locations being closer. But either way it goes, they'll be playing in Orlando. And also, just to give you all a heads up, better airport. You got a better airport in Orlando than you do in Jacksonville. Of course, you got a better airport because Disney World's there. So that's one other thing to think about too. So now they'll be playing in Orlando for the 2027 season, which I think is a pretty good place for them to be. I know a particular person that covers and writes on the Jacksonville Jaguars is very happy because he lives in Orlando. So now he can stay in his backyard for 2027 and can watch them on local TV. I know he's happy. All right. But yeah, definitely something to keep up with, and something of interest to watch when they are playing in Camping World Stadium. And again, the stadium size definitely is a play there. Just the convenience of where it is and all those different things. I think that is a little bit better play in terms of the parking and things like the size of the stadium. So I think that's two of the main reasons why Jacksonville chose there as opposed to at Ben Hill Griffin Stadium in Gainesville and Daytona International Speedway. Which, by the way, if they had it there, you know, look at that stadium, look at how they have it. It would look strange. I mean, you can make you can make 100-yard field in the ends in the infield. Then you gotta, you could probably fill in some seats. It's almost like, they're playing at a big stadium. It's almost like when the Final Fours gets played at big stadiums. It just looks weird because the floor is raised up. You got all these seats filling in and all that stuff. Yeah, it just looks a little weird. But now moving on, of course, there were also some signings this week, and there was 4 of those on April Fool's Day from the Tennessee Titans, but they weren't a joke. All right. As far as the signings, they signed a couple wide receivers, they signed a running back, and they signed a quarterback. Let me run through these real quick for you. All right. Now, they signed wide receiver KJ Osborne. They signed running back Michael Carter. They signed quarterback Hendon Hooker. I know University of Tennessee fans know that name very well. And they also signed wide receiver Lance McCutcheon. Now, these names are probably not names that, send off alarm bells and ring in your ears or anything of that nature. I get it. But let's just take a look at these guys. Now, as far as KJ Osborne, I remember his first 3 years playing for the University of Minnesota, playing for the Minnesota Vikings, and he actually was pretty decent. He had over 100 yards, 3 straight seasons for them. But it's from there, didn't quite translate to another team. Went to play for the Patriots. It didn't really go as well in 2024. 2025 didn't scratch any stats. I believe he played for the Commanders, but just didn't scratch any stats. And now he's coming to the Tennessee Titans. I mean, he's 5'11", 203. Definitely going to be a guy that's going to compete. Of course, obviously, he's still trying to make a roster. But more probably a back end of the roster type of guy if he does make the roster. So more probably competing with the guys like maybe a Bryce Oliver or someone of that nature at the back end of the Titans rotation or rotation as it stands right now. So, we'll definitely see what happens there regards to KJ Osborne. Next guy up, Michael Carter. Now, Michael Carter is another guy that played for Robert Saleh in New York when he was coach of the New York Football Jets. Last year he played in Arizona. He had a few things happen. Just he was a guy that can actually catch the ball out of the backfield, and he can run the ball as well. Kind of jittery, does have some speed. Kind of reminds you of, I would say, he basically can do some things that Tajay Spears can do in terms of catching the ball in the backfield and running the football. So that interesting signing there. Hendon Hooker. Now, with Hendon Hooker signing, that makes 4 quarterbacks on the roster. If you lost count, that's Cam Ward, that's Mitch Trubisky, that's Will Levis, and now Hendon Hooker, the former University of Tennessee quarterback. He was selected a few years back by the Detroit Lions. Plenty thought that maybe he'd mature and grow and potentially be the guy behind name is escaping me. But basically end up being the guy at quarterback eventually, or being, the backup as well. But behind Jared Goff, there we go, behind Jared Goff. But or being the guy, but it just never worked out for him in Detroit. Was playing with the Carolina Panthers last season. Was there, but didn't really, touch the field or anything of that nature. And now he's here in Tennessee. Now, I know there were a lot of Tennessee Titans fans and a lot of Tennessee Vols fans that were calling for him to be here last season and be the backup. I know. Brandon Allen was the backup last season, and there were some fans that weren't happy with him being the backup. With that being said, they were calling for Hendon Hooker. They saw him out there, saw him available. Now, this season, Will Levis is healthy. Or all reports are is that he's healthy. You bring in Mitch Trubisky, and now you bring in a Hendon Hooker. So there's 4 people in the room. Now, there's widely speculation, and a lot of people believe that Will Levis will not be on the roster, next season at some point or before the season starts. I mean, we'll see if that actually happens. I just saying what is reported out there, but we'll see what happens. Nothing's set in stone there. But either way it goes, he's a guy that's going to come in and compete. And you got four quarterbacks. You can't keep all four quarterbacks. So we'll see what happens there. Eventually he could, you never know if Will Levis is traded, he could be the third quarterback in this team. And who knows? They could hang on to him and try to develop him as well. We never know. We'll see what happens. As far as Lynch McCutcheon, not really any stats for him. Of course, I believe he was going to step away from the game, but then made the choice to come sign with the Tennessee Titans. We'll see what happens. Not really a ton of stats to kind of go off of with him, or not any stats to go off with him. But hey, maybe he's a guy that comes in and competes just for making the roster or make it through special teams or something of that nature. All in all, these four signings are really competition in camp. Definitely with KJ Osborne, Lance McCutcheon, and Michael Carter, Hendon Hooker. I would say definitely a few things fall his way. Perhaps he make it as the third quarterback, but it's way too early to talk about that. But the biggest thing is fostering competition at camp if you're a Tennessee Titans fan, and that's what it seems like the Tennessee Titans are trying to do this offseason. All right, we're gonna move on, go back to the NFL meetings, and I had a quick observation during the NFL meetings. And you know how they always propose rules and things like that. Notice the silence on the tush push. Here, I'm going to explain. Now, as far as just the 2024 Philadelphia Eagles, they won the Super Bowl that year. They were the best rushing team in the NFL. They dominated in the trenches. Of course, they used the unstoppable tush push if it got within 1 yard, or it was 3rd and 1, and sometimes they go for it on 4th and 1 as well. They were unstoppable with it. And it worked well for them, and they rode all those things along with Saquon Barkley to winning a Super Bowl. And immediately that offseason, people were ready to get rid of the tush push. Everyone was trying it. It was brought up as a rule, and then people were saying about future injuries, despite there being no data that said people get more injured during the tush push, which I found that was funny. I think it was Sean McDermott saying future injuries, and I was like, what are we doing here? Are we we doing a Tom Cruise movie here? Are we really just I just didn't understand it. But anyway, that did not pass, so the tush push stayed. And then last year, of course, they were 11-6, did not really look very good offensively. Injuries up front didn't get them that same push that they were used to getting up front, and they didn't make it to the Super Bowl, obviously. And notice this offseason, NFL owner meetings, not a peep about the tush push, not one single word about the tush push. You know what that leads me to believe? It leads me to believe that success was the only reason that people were trying to get rid of the tush push. Again, success was the reason that people were trying to get rid of the tush push. When the Eagles were successful, they were trying to take something away. So maybe we can compete too if we take away the tush push. Maybe, just maybe. But, now that last year they didn't play as well offensively, especially in the trenches, now there's not a peep about it. So, I just find that quite interesting, that now there's nothing being said about it. But all of a sudden, a couple years ago now at this point, we're open arms. We got to get rid of it. It's for the safety of players. But now you don't hear a peep about it talking about the safety of players. So much for that imaginary data that some coaches were talking about. All right, we're going to finish the show. We're going to talk about a particular gentleman that has decided to hang up his cleats, and that would be Stephon Gilmore. Now, the incredible cornerback is decided to officially retire. He played for, played a lot of seasons, by the way. and he was good for a lot of seasons as well. Of course, playing in Buffalo and then New England and Carolina, Indianapolis, Dallas as well. I mean, he was a pretty solid corner for the majority of his career, and I'm being saying pretty solid, tongue in cheek. 32 total interceptions for the former University of South Carolina star, 617 total tackles, 2 TDs, and those were in the 2019 season when he was the defensive MVP. Yeah, defensive player of the year. That was him. He had 6 interceptions total for his career. He was 6 interceptions for that year. I'm sorry, when he was defensive player of the year. 20 passes defended, 53 total tackles, and a Super Bowl win. So there you go. The man was putting in work. Of course, he was an All-Pro 2018, 2019, and after a rough season with the Carolina Panthers in 2021, of course, he rebounded, went to Indy. He still showed he had it out there, even though he didn't play probably up to the standard he probably wanted to play. He still was getting things done out there, playing for the Indianapolis Colts. Definitely a star-studded career for Stephon Gilmore. I will say, when he came out, I did not expect him to be the stud he was at corner. I'm not saying I didn't expect him to be good. I expect him to be good, but he was better than good. He was great at times out there. So I did not expect him to be as great, and he was great at corner. And of course, now the talk will be, of course, 5 years, whether he makes the Hall of Fame. In my opinion, he is a Hall of Fame cornerback. Again, in my opinion, he is a Hall of Fame cornerback. Yes, he is. He affected the game. He took away different things from different teams. He had a major effect, especially the year the New England Patriots went to the Super Bowl and won the Super Bowl in 2019. Yes, that year he especially was the man on that team. And you got to give him credit. He's not necessarily an overly big guy. He's like 5'10". So he's not a super big guy playing corner. He's a average size guy. And I got to give him his respect. I mean, to be able to do all the things he was able to do, not necessarily be the biggest guy out there, and be the defensive, basically the defensive MVP 1 year in the NFL, that's hard to do, especially at a cornerback role. Name me how many cornerbacks have literally been the defensive MVP. Not a ton of them. Now, I know recently, of course, Patrick Surtain. I know somebody wants to tell me that one. But it's incredible when a cornerback is able to capture the award of being the defensive MVP for the league, not just for his team, the league. And I do think that Stephon Gilmore will be an NFL Hall of Famer, enjoying the greats like, your Darrelle Reeves and guys like that in the Hall of Fame. Respect, Stephon Gilmore, amazing career. And now on to your second career, whatever that may be. Or it may be just hanging out. Hey, do what you do. Stephon Gilmore, you deserve it. And congratulations on your retirement. And that is the end of the show. I'm your host, Mike Patton. You can find me on the artist formerly known as Twitter at Mike Patton82. That's MikePaton 82. You can also find me on Blue Sky, the same thing. On Instagram and Threads, you can find me at that's THA, not THE, _general_MP. You can find Touring the AFC South on all listening platforms, whether it be Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, you name it, we are there. And again, you can subscribe at the Mike Patton Network on YouTube. Go ahead and click the bell so you do not miss any episodes when they air. I want to thank you for tuning into this episode of Touring the AFC South. We're out. Peace.